Welcome to your weekly astrological weather. This is your place to get practical guidance for not only surviving, but thriving with the cosmic tides. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to your weekly astrological weather. My name is Amanda Walsh. I'm the founder of Astrology Hub. I am so happy to be here with all of you and also with Jenn Zahrt, who is here for, is this your third weekly weather, Jenn? Yes. Yep. All right. And so she's back to give us the read on the week ahead. As you know, our Inner Circle enrollment period is open. Jenn is actually going to be an Inner Circle astrologer here in what month are you going to be, Jenn?
Virgo. I'll be with the Virgo.
In the Virgo month, yes. And you're going to be teaching a mastery class on
secondary progressions.
Ooh, secondary progressions. All right. So the Inner Circle is really for students. It's for those of you who are out there that are like, I've been trying to learn on my own. I've been like trying to put things together, but I'd really like one place where I can consistently touch in and learn from the best astrologers. And different from the way that we do it on the podcast very much is about what and why. And in the Inner Circle, we really start to go into how. So I'm just going to read a couple testimonials from Inner Circle members to give you an idea of the benefit, like what they're actually getting as members. So Lori says, I've studied astrology for 30 years, off and on, but until joining the Inner Circle, it was piecemeal. I've learned so much here, and it's all clear and easy to put together. And then Annie says, I've learned so much since joining the Inner Circle. It really started to put the pieces together for me. So that is one of the main benefits. It's like you go to one place very consistently and things start to come together. And especially with the consistency and the rhythm. So Jenn, do you want to say anything about that? Because I know you've been studying astrology for 25 years. So what do you feel is the benefit of consistency and exposure to lots of different astrologers? Like, how can you see that benefiting a student?
So it's much like when you're learning a language. If you're only speaking to one person who speaks it, you're going to adopt all of their dialect and their vocabulary. But the more people you meet, the more vocabulary you learn and the more ways to look at the stars, and different techniques land on you in different ways. And you begin to triangulate which ones resonate with how you want to practice or approach the sky, and also charts and maybe even client work if you decide to go professional. But there's a benefit, I think, in just learning it for yourself too, to be speaking with as many astrologers as you can, because each person that you learn from is going to teach you something that's going to make it your astrology. And that's,
I love that.
My favorite part of it is meeting people and learning.
Definitely. Okay. So if you're interested in checking it out and joining us, we only open twice a year. Enrollment is open right now. You can go to astrologyhub.com/innercircle22. We'll put that link in the show notes and in the description of this podcast, but check it out. And we would love to welcome you inside. Okay. So Jenn, let's look ahead at the week. What would you say is the overarching theme?
So that was hard to parse out. And I'm actually hoping maybe we can figure it out in the talking through the sweep of the week, because there's no one message coalescing around it. The big moment in this week is actually the Cancer Solstice. And even then, inside that chart, there are some tensions that make it difficult to choose just one theme. So perhaps by the end of our conversation today, we can land on what really could bring it all together.
I love that. Rick Levine and I have a habit of doing that for the monthly. Like he'll often say, like, it hasn't totally come through, but by the end of the monthly forecast, we usually have a theme. So we'll all be listening. What is that theme? What is that overarching theme as you go through the week?
Sure.
All right. So let's start with today, Monday. What are we looking at? And let's just go through the major aspects.
Well, the moon is in Pisces, and by lunchtime, it's going to conjoin Neptune, which is totally like tune out, drop out, sort of watch a movie over lunch, do something dreamy, like go make a piece of art or something that is just not a part of instrumental labor, right? I feel like Monday we're going to kind of be a little groggy and like, oh, really? We've got to do another week. It's summertime. It's like, well, about to be summertime the next day. And so there's this, very Piscean kind of like swimming in the waters, Neptunian feeling, right? Because the moon, and as it conjoins planets, is like a trigger, and it's asking this very slow moving Neptune, right? And Neptune will go retrograde next week. So this week, Neptune's slowing down to a standstill. And when the moon conjoins it on Monday, it's going to give us that sort of sense of we're spending the day treading through water. And that water might be fast or slow, depending on your own relationship to water, but it's going to be a little bit of a dreamier kind of day. So I wouldn't put too much pressure on getting things done. In fact, I would think about any intuitions that come, like any dreams or images from the dream as you wake up in the morning, write those down and kind of be aware of what is coming through, because the moon is talking to Neptune saying, all right, what's coming now? What's coming now? I think that's a really important midday activity. The evening, though, does shift. So in the evening, we finally get to that last quarter square. So we're going to go into the last quarter of the moon, the waning square, at 8:10 p.m. And then the moon is void for 26 minutes before it goes into Aries. And that's the beginning of what is going to really coalesce the next day with the solstice. So like at about 8:36 p.m. Pacific, sorry, I'm starting Pacific time because I'm on the West Coast of the United States. That's when we're going to start to feel that energy move. Like, oh, all day long, I felt so groggy. And suddenly at nighttime, it's like, did I just drink caffeine? Like, what's going on, right? And I think that's a really cool thing to pay attention to, because any 0-degree cardinal sign, so when the moon enters Aries and is at 0 Aries, it's aligning with what the sun is going to do when it hits 0 Cancer, right? That's that cardinal axis and that jolt energy that we get, where it's get the impetus to change, make things happen, instigate stuff. So that Monday night is going to be pretty exciting, I think.
Energizing, a bolt of energy is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Great. And that's bringing us into the Tuesday solstice energy. Then,
right? Yes.
Okay.
So the solstice technically takes place at 2:13 a.m. So in Pacific, so 5:13 on the East Coast of the United States. And that's going to be, this very cardinal energy. We've got the moon in Aries, Jupiter in Aries, Mars in Aries. The sun is now in Cancer. And there's this feeling of like churning something, like moving motion, right? Whereas you have, with the beginning of the week on Monday, the sun was in diffuse Gemini, the moon was in diffuse Pisces, right? So suddenly we have this coalescing of like, let's do this now. And so the whole season of Cancer is one of initiation, in the same way that you have with any cardinal sign. What are we doing this summer? Where are we going? There's going to be this feeling of wanting to get out. And that feeling of getting out is underscored by the waning square also, because that's a disseminating attitude, right? We've collected a lot. We've been inside a lot. Now it's time to go outside, get out and do things, go on a trip, take a road trip, travel. I know the gas prices are really high, but, some kind of thing to like move the energy, because that's what cardinality wants. It wants to initiate movement. And the waning is, I think, one of sharing that, not collecting it for oneself, but actually going outside, going somewhere, doing it for others, with others, spreading things around. And I love the party that's taking place with the moon in Aries conjunct Jupiter at 8:36 a.m. So just a little couple hours after the solstice. And then Mars is also in Aries as well. So we have this sense of the moon and Jupiter visiting Mars at his house and having a big party with him. And he's in a great mood because he's in his own space. He can do what he wants. And as Rick also likes to say, I loved it when I first heard Rick Levine say this, Mars in Aries, or any kind of Aries energy, is like ready, fire, aim. So there's just like chaos going on with them, and they're having such a good time. Jupiter wants to make everything bigger. Mars wants to do it now. The moon is like, okay, I also want to do it now. Like, what are we going to do here? So this huge party is taking place while the solstice is happening. And I think that's an important thing to think about, because we've had so much, lack of hope or just stress around the pandemic. And, here we have this jolt of Aryan sort of like, I say Aries based kind of optimism, right? Because, if you think about like the moon in Aries from a natal perspective, these people can't hold a grudge. They just can't. Like, they might get mad and it flushes through them. And once it's gone, it's gone, in the same way that a match is bright and then it's gone, And so I feel like there's that really cool sparky energy to this pileup of planets in Aries in the solstice chart. And the other thing that I'm seeing in the solstice chart is an exact trine between Venus and Pluto. So Venus will be at 28 degrees of Taurus, Pluto will be at 28 degrees of Capricorn, and the flowing energy of Venus towards Pluto from her home sign of Taurus, I think that's asking us in this next solstice season to pay attention to our enmeshments. Whenever I see a Venus-Pluto configuration, I always think of a triangle, and this happens to be a trine. So who else is playing? Is there someone unseen playing ball in this court, right? Or who else is going into this experience with us this summer that might need to be called out to the table, right? And sort of be included overtly. Venus and Pluto have that Persephone relationship, underground, above ground, underground, above ground. And what that can lead to sometimes is not disclosing the fullness. And so I think this Venus-Pluto trine is going to ask us to be a little more patient, tolerant, inclusive with ourselves as we sort of look around and say, you know what, maybe there is a part of my life I can be more overtly integrating into and not so furtive or secretive about, you know?
Jenn, I'd love to spend a little more time on the solstice just because it is maybe the biggest event of the week. And you gave us lots of awesome information astrologically. My question is, if people want to commemorate it, or if they want to do something special to acknowledge the solstice, I'm wondering, should we throw a party or should we do the more inner, like sun standing still, inward reflection, or both? And or neither? What would you say?
Honestly, I think each person can respond how they would like to for themselves. I can't say I'm in the mood to throw a party, even though I know there's going to be a star party in the sky. Like, hey, you guys do it for me. I'm I'm doing things on the planet here. But I think, you know, what's happening when we get to a solstitial point is it's the foundation of our tropical zodiac. It's the change of season. But if you think about the spherical relationship of the earth, it's like a tangerine and it's tilted 23 degrees. And as it orbits the sun, the sun will make this interesting sort of path in it. And the path is like a sine wave. And that's why we have the tropics, right? The sun comes to a certain point of height in the sky in the northern hemisphere, and then it never gets that high again. It gets lower and lower on the horizon until we get to the Capricorn solstice. And there's a standing still sensation. If we were to watch it at the same time of day, every single day, it would appear to stand still, which is unnatural if you think of that. If we looked at the full moon, which would have been 2 weeks ago, the moon and sun relationship, the moon is very low on the horizon, the sun is very high on the horizon, and they have a crossover effect at the equinox. And then there's an opposite of that at the Capricorn solstice. You get the sun low on the horizon and the full moon in Cancer very high in the sky. And so very ancient peoples used to look at this crossover lunation as a kind of important benchmark for the other parts of the year where the sun moon relationship has this own beautiful kind of double helix pattern, you could call it. It might not be exactly that, but I like to think of it as the solstice isn't just about this singular point. On the whole entire cycle, we have this wave of the sun's path across the sky. And so we have to think about that constant observation of the sky in the ways that, you know, if we were in prehistoric cultures, we don't have backlit LED screens that you're seeing us on right now. We don't have, you know, the understanding of the cosmology of the world. There's just these God forms of light moving through the sky in these arcs. It's a beautiful thing. And so we come to this point of maximum fullness, and the season will now be getting hotter in the north and colder in the south. And so it's this time to think about, you know, we've reached this peak of the year, and now we're heading towards shorter days and even shorter days until the day is as short as it can be. And then by some miracle, the days get longer again. So it is that point of standstill to think of reflecting forwards and backwards 6 months. Where were we at that last Capricorn solstice? What do we need to do to get ready for the next Capricorn solstice? And here we are at the Cancer solstice, and there's this feeling at once of this cardinality of initiation, but the moon, we always have to think about our moon, our satellite, is waning. So there's another element of there's an initiation, but a spreading as well. So it's not this like build up, it's more of this other kind of energy. Whether or not to share that with others, that could be one thing, but I think just even thinking about our cosmology and just the the nature of astronomy and the astronomical facets of this phenomenon can really help ground us in like our own trajectory, regardless of our own personal chart. It's more like, hey, we're all humans on this planet, and the ones of us who live in the global north are going to experience this, and the global south will have that, you know. So
I love that so much, Jen. It's I love what you just described about the wave, because then we can see our own lives as this wave. And so the solstices, it's almost like we're at the crest or at the base, you know, depending on which solstice.
yeah.
And then the equinoxes, it's almost like the tide coming in and out at the same time, you know,
Yeah.
but we're a part of that. We're a part of that flow, and having these natural built-in opportunities to really reflect and be like, how far have I come? And where am I going? And where am I right now? It's funny that we don't do that as much as you would think that we would, but I could speak for myself. I know sometimes you just get swept up in the waves. And so to have these moments where you're just taking that pause, like, okay, what's going on? And do I like the direction I'm going? Are there adjustments that I'd like to make? Is there anything that I need to, let go of, or there's things that I need to double down on, you know, all those things, just taking the moment to do that. So I love what you're saying. And that explanation you just gave astronomically was so visually clear as you were speaking about it. It's like, oh, wow, I can see that. I can feel that. So it's really beautiful. All right. So we covered Tuesday. Let's talk about Wednesday.
Okay. So on Wednesday, the morning begins with an Aries moon. There's going to be a bit of a pep in your step. And by noon, the moon will conjoin Mars. So watch your words. It can be pretty feisty when the moon's on Mars. People might cut you off on your way to lunch. They might be a little more, extra. Because yesterday, remember, the moon was conjoined Jupiter. So when it gets to Mars now, it activates that Mars in Aries kind of like, I want what I want it now, let's go for it. And I don't really want to like consider other people, right? And that might be you, or you might be the recipient of that. So just being aware that it's Mars on stage might be helpful. And so if we think about high functioning Mars, if we go back to more traditional techniques and think about Mars's capacity to be the planet that rules division, right? This and not that. There's a false etymology of decide, which is to kill off all other options. And that idea of, you have patricide, to kill the father. So to decide is to kill other options. That's actually not a true etymology, but I sort of always like that as a mnemonic, because Mars says, I want this and not these things, right? But sometimes when we express our desires, we trample on other people. And so a high functioning Mars has a mission and says, okay, this is why I want this. And so my no isn't because I'm trying to be emotionally hurtful to anyone. It's because I'm committed to this thing, which means I can't commit to these things. And there's no sort of drag to that decision. So I think Wednesday is a time to wake up and say, okay, what's my mission? How can I communicate clearly without any kind of emotional static with people, why I'm doing this and not that, why I can't pay attention to you now, why my phone's on do not disturb. I'm focused on this thing for me, right? Because the Aries energy is really truly wherever it is in your chart, that's something where it's got to be your own, right? Your own individual scenario. So I think it's important to kind of be aware of the potential volatility on Wednesday of that Moon Mars conjunction happening around noon Pacific, 3 p.m. New York. And by the evening time, we're going to see a total shift of Venus entering into Gemini. So around 5:34 p.m. on Wednesday, Venus will go into Gemini. And this is my favorite word for Gemini is glitter. Venus is going to be like, let's connect to this, let's connect to this, let's connect to this, right? Venus rules connection, and she's been in her home sign of Taurus getting all those creature comforts, and now she's ready to get mental. She wants to think about things, be curious. What about that? Let me go look that up. I'm like wanting to talk to everyone I know. My phone is going crazy right now, right? And so there's this really cool energy of Venus hopping out into the social sign of Gemini.
Okay. I love that analogy of glitter. That's so fun to think about Venus. She's been comforted and pampered and all these things for the last, what is it, like two months that Venus is in a sign?
Venus is in a sign more like around a month.
A month.
Okay. Yeah, she travels pretty close to the sun.
And so if we're thinking about Venus and Gemini shifting from that Taurus energy and being more glittery, it's more of a social energy, it's more of a connecting energy, and like you said, it's more of a mental energy, correct?
Yeah, yeah. Because of the air sign qualities, right? So when I think of Taurus, and this is true also because the moon is going to move into Taurus on Thursday, right? So we're thinking about the distinctions between Taurus and Gemini. Taurus is about texture. How does it taste? What does it feel like on my tongue? T words, right? We've got this idea of like the touch of something. Is it soft? Is it feathery? Like, what is the texture? Like indulging in texture. And then that's Venus's home sign. She's all about that kind of slow and just enjoyable surface of things, you know, in the textural, earthy way in Taurus. And when she moves into the mutable air sign of Gemini, she wants to tell everyone about it, right? And if we go with glitter even further, putting glitter on, glitter is actually kind of sharp. Like you don't want to touch glitter, really, you know, and when it's on you, the thing that makes it beautiful is staying at a distance so you can see it shine. Right? It's not about being like, if you don't want glitter anywhere near your eyes, hopefully, right? So you don't want to get like too close to it because you can't actually see how pretty it is. You need that distance, and air signs are all about distance, which, you know, for people who have natal Gemini Venuses, they love connecting through talking. They don't necessarily need you to be right next to them with a touch and feel. They actually love that intellectual stimulation of a conversation. So Venus's connection style now gets a little more distant and a little more, aloof. And the other thing about glitter is that there's so many facets that reflect the light. You can be endless. You just have all these different ways of understanding this, you know, so it's just like, yeah.
So people interpreting that for themselves, does that mean that you will maybe have the inclination to do those kinds of things? Does that mean to go in the direction of those kinds of things? Or is it just, this is the, like, especially if you know people with Venus and Gemini, that it's an understanding of the energy.
They're about to have a Venus return. If Venus is in Gemini in their natal chart, that's one thing. So they're going to reconnect to their connection style. But Venus going through the sign of Gemini, wherever house you have Gemini in your chart, is going to get a little sweeter with Venus's transit through that sign. Okay. Our personal Venus will be our personal connection style. The ambient is Venus, you know, maybe we are connecting more on an intellectual level as Venus transits that sign, but that's always modulated by our chart.
I love it. All right, Thursday.
So Thursday kicks off at 4:58 a.m. Pacific. Moon moves into yummy Taurus, eating all the things. I would say Thursday, if you have any kind of like breakfast plans, make them extra good. I know I always say this with Moon and Taurus, but it's like a yummy situation, right? Like, what does it taste like? Like, let's indulge in the like gourmet version of our usual, right? And just focusing on that embodiedness, being textural. And remember, later this summer, Uranus is going to conjoin the North Node in Taurus. Mars is going to join that conjunction also. So the moon moving for the first time into Taurus in this season of the sort of summer season in the north is going to give us a little bit of a preview. So Thursday and Friday actually are both a little bit of a preview of what's to come later at the end of July. So keep aware of anything that's irritating, right? Mars and Uranus, I love them. I have them configured natally. They're irritating, right? Like that's part of their job. If we're thinking of all of the life of human beings experienced being symbolized by astrological factors, this is one of irritation. So Moon being in Taurus is going to be showcasing a little bit of like what we need to focus on about that Taurian stability, wherever we have that. We all have all signs in our chart, as we know. And so wherever Taurus is in your chart is where you need things to be pretty stable and where you're hesitant to change. And the moon comes along saying, I'm going to scratch that scab a little bit. I'm going to make that, because Uranus has already been there for a minute, right? So the moon is like, let's shine some light on this. And maybe some new information comes about that is going to be relevant for later. Coupled with that on Thursday is also the sun will be at 2 degrees of Cancer, making a 45-degree angle, a semi-square, to Uranus at 17 degrees of Taurus. So again, this is another luminary underscoring the tensions between things we want to have stay out the way they've always been and needing to shift into a new direction. So if we go back and think about May 5th, that's when the sun was conjoined Uranus. Thursday, June 23rd is going to give us a little bit of a spanner in the works, a development of that, because the 45-degree angle, this aspect, is the first sort of tension that has arisen since that May 5th conjunction. So in the cycle of that new relationship between the sun and Uranus, we're going to see a little bit of a development around whatever began on May 5th. And it connects also, I'm just trying to like, days aren't just individual, like, so they connect forwards and backwards. So from whatever happened on May 5th, looking forward also towards July 31st, August 1st, basically.
Mm-hmm. And just a little reminder for ways to remember, because I barely remember what happened yesterday. So it's like May 5th. I don't know. Look at your camera, look at your emails, look at your texts, like look at the things that mark time for you, look at your calendar,
right?
So that you can be reminded of what was happening. And that storyline is continuing to unfold and will continue to unfold through July.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I even in preparation for our conversation today, I'm like, I know something important happened on May 5th, but I can't remember what it was, but I remember feeling good. So I have hopes for Thursday. But I also want to say it can be prickly, right? Because the moon in Taurus also is a bit more of it's an earth, it's an earth sign. It wants to be a little more interior, quiet, pacing itself. And then we have Uranus there, causing turbulence, being that irritant, and Uranus also can symbolize electricity. And electricity in Taurus is that, I was looking at some research in the library here, and there was an article in 1934 by someone who said Uranus in Taurus is like this buildup of energy. But the moon in astrology, especially the transiting moon, is a trigger. So if we move into Friday, the moon will be conjoining Uranus at 3:14 p.m., which means it's 6:14 p.m. on the East Coast. That is explosive. This is a trigger of this discharge. We might be a little spiky. We might not want to be Taurus wants that intimacy of physical connection, and Uranus and the moon together are like, no, step back. I actually don't want that. So I think Friday, we should also be a little bit like Wednesday, on alert for any spikiness we might be feeling, or, independence, and think about what independence even means. Like, I want to be apart from, I'm on my own, my sovereignty is here, and I don't need to be necessarily in community, or my community needs to break away from that community. And so this independent streak, I think, is very strong on Friday, and it is also the beginning of the balsamic phase of the moon, because next week there'll be a new moon in Cancer. And so it's this time, I think, where if we're feeling that spikiness and that sense of needing independence, it's okay to spend Friday on your own, doing something that is maybe not characteristic for you. Or if you are normally introverted and not going out, you might actually find yourself wanting to go for, a spin around the neighborhood with friends, or something very exciting that's not normally a part of your more introverted routine. So I'm just going to say it's like if we can be aware of the potential for spikiness, we can also use that sort of flipped energy. If you're normally extroverted, you want to spend it alone. If you're normally not, you can go find people to hang with. So that's kind of the Friday situation.
Okay. So how about Saturday and Sunday? What are we looking at for the weekend?
Wow. So Saturday begins at 6:01 a.m. with the moon squaring Saturn. So that Taurus moon is going to make a nice little square to Saturn, and on the East Coast, it'll be at 9:01 a.m., right? So you wake up at Saturday and you're like, oh, I don't want to do anything, right? Or like, oh no, I thought I had a weekend and I could do something leisurely, and Saturn's there going, no, you have some homework, right? And so it brings the mood a little down. Just after that, the moon is going to make its last aspect in the sign of Taurus as a trine to Pluto, again at the end of Capricorn. So at noon on the West Coast and at 3 p.m. on the East Coast, we're basically having a void moon. What does a void moon mean? Now, in traditional astrology, if the moon's in Taurus, it can't be void because the moon has strength in the sign of Taurus. It's a sign of exaltation. However, in modern astrology, when the moon makes its last Ptolemaic aspect, that is a conjunction, sextile, square, trine, or opposition to a planet, then it's a set adrift. It's floating. So if you think about this floating energy, it's this idea of don't try to do. The morning kicks off on Saturday with this needing to do something. But by the time we hit noon or 3 p.m., we're going to need to let go. The wonderful thing about a void moon that people always overlook is it is kind of a zone of no action. The moon doesn't have anything else to do until it enters Gemini later that day. So don't push yourself to do stuff. let yourself be. And what is the best thing to do on a weekend if you're supposed to let yourself be? Be with your friends, be with your partner, be with your child, be with your children, be with any nature, anything that you'd like to just be with. No agenda, no need to do something together, simply be and enjoy that void moon and enjoy the Saturday of sort of this flowy sort of state. And then when the moon goes into Gemini, again, just like with Venus earlier in the week, that's when you're going to get that need to go out and be more social perhaps, or talk more, or curiosity infects the evening, starting a new show, for example, watching a different kind of movie or something like that. Perhaps listening to music and dancing, something that's a little more social and verbal, mental.
You know, you've mentioned several times throughout this week, this kind of that, well, we have the standing still, we have just be, we have the luxurious Taurian breakfast on Thursday, we have a Monday where it's kind of dreamy and floaty. And one of the things that I find, I don't know about all of you, is that I actually have to give myself permission to take those kinds of moments. Like, it's okay. And not only is it okay, it is necessary. And it actually can end up being the most quote unquote productive time, because in those spacious times, new ideas come. We're reinvigorated with other ideas. We're allowed to rejuvenate, so that when we do, put the pedal to the metal again, in whatever way that is, there's new energy behind it. Yeah. So it sounds to me, if we're looking for our theme, that it seems to be, permission to stop, or, permission for space, or something like that, where it's just keeping in mind that it's as important. And if we think about the universe and the in-breath and the out-breath and the waxing and the waning of the moon and all these different cycles and rhythms that are just built into the universe, we as humans can align to those natural cycles and rhythms and be energized through them. And when we're trying to work against those rhythms, it's exhausting. We get burnt out. We are less productive. We're less creative. We're less able to connect with the people in our lives. So there's such an intelligence in aligning our rhythm with that cosmic rhythm.
Yeah. And when you spoke just now, the image coming to me was, we're like on an inner tube in a river, and there's some rapids and there's some excitement, but also, what are you supposed to do? Like, you're not going to try to swim upstream. Right. You're just going to let go and float. Maybe that's it. Let go and float.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, it's something that Christopher Renstrom brought up in the day 2 panel event that we just did, the solstice panel. He gave us the analogy for the rest of the year as if we are on a river raft and we are going down the river, and there are lots of rapids, and then there's the periods of calm, but generally he was saying the rest of the year and into next year is kind of like being on a little bit of a scary rapid ride, and that we have a choice for how we respond. Are we like, yay, this is so fun? Or are we like, oh my God, I'm terrified, and like clutching and gripping the entire time and enjoying not a second of it? And isn't this a great analogy for life in general? Yeah. But it sounds to me like there's this a little bit of a lull in the energy this week. Yeah. Use it, like actually harness that, because the rest of the year might not be like that as much. Right. So enjoy this moment of calm on the rapids, where it's like,
and that brings us exactly to Sunday, because on Sunday there is a sleepy sky. Now, with a caveat, we do have meteors this week, so I won't talk about that before we go. But on Sunday, at basically just as Sunday begins, 12:02 a.m. on the West Coast, we get a lovely Moon Venus conjunction, which you can see in the sky. It's going to be beautiful to see Moon next to Venus. And then at 6:26 a.m. on the West Coast, Moon makes a sextile to Jupiter. And so these two benefics, this is a very lovely kind of, a sextile is a lovely friendly aspect. Jupiter is a wonderful planet doing his thing in Aries. And so it's like you get this kind of like soft day, a day of rest, a day of like, there's not really much planetary action. The moon being in Gemini keeps our mind active perhaps, but it's really not like there's much going on in terms of aspects or things that we need to pay attention to in that way. So it truly is a day of rest before we get to that next new moon in Cancer in the following week.
Okay, Jen, this has been super helpful. I'm going to do a little summary for us. So essentially, and I'm just going to go quick through the days. So we have Monday, and mainly the energy here is slowing down, treading water. Pay attention to your intuition, write things down, be aware. There's going to be some inspiration and ideas that come to you if you allow yourself that space. In the evening, though, it's energizing. So the day is kind of dreamy and floaty, but that night is kind of on fire. Do you think people might have trouble sleeping that night?
Potentially.
Yeah. So maybe do some extra like cool down things that you need to do before. I know for me, like stretching or even red light therapy, which I love, by the way.
That's good for an Aries moon on Monday night. Yes.
Yes, it's so great. So, doing some things that just help you like, okay, I can relax and fall asleep. Tuesday is our solstice. So what are you doing? Where are you going? Can you move the energy? This is an initiating energy, but it's also a standstill energy. So we have this like juxtaposition happening. This is a time to sort of spread things around. So what have you gathered for the first part of the year? What have you learned? What are the aha moments that you've had, and how can you start to like spread those out and share them and disseminate what you've learned, just like the moon does as it gathers its light all the first part of the lunar cycle, and then it shares it at that full moon, and then it's kind of winding down. Pay attention to enmeshments, and there could be some third energy that's a part of your life, and maybe you're consciously aware of it, maybe you're not. Is this a time to actually shed some light on that energy, whatever that is, and bring it into the fold, bring it into the light, allow it to be a part of you instead of having it be this third sort of unseen, unnamed entity. And that could be like actually people, right? Like that could be people you're not acknowledging in your life, but that also can be aspects of yourself that you're not acknowledging in your life, correct? I want to make sure I'm interpreting that right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you gave lots of good suggestions for ways that we can actually commemorate and reflect and contemplate at that solstice point. Wednesday, watch your words. The moon is feisty, be aware. This is high Mars energy. So you could feel really focused, or other people feel really focused. But sometimes when we're focused like that, we can plow down the people around us. So be aware. You can be focused and kind. You can be focused, and you could just be honest, like, hey, person, child that's trying to get your attention, or friend that wants to talk to you in that moment, whatever it is, I'm really focused on this right now. So I need to get it done. And then I'm going to have some time to spend with you, or however you want to do it. Be also aware that other people might be in that state. They may or may not be able to speak to you that way. So just give people the benefit of the doubt. Like, they're just trying to get some things done. You said there's potential volatility. This is also the day that Venus goes into Gemini, really shifting that Venusian energy for the next month. So wherever you have Gemini in your chart, Venus is coming in, and there's going to be a glitter party. That's essentially what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Glitter everywhere. So that sounds like a lot of fun. All right. Thursday, we have a preview into Thursday, Friday-ish. We have a preview into what storyline we're going to be working with at the end of July. And this also ties into whatever was happening in your life in the beginning of May. So around May 5th. There's potentially a tension between the way things have been and the way things are going. So just being aware of that, how can you hold that tension? We've been working a lot on that in the inner circle. It's this idea of holding opposites at the same time and allowing a third possibility to emerge. So maybe it's a tension between you and a person. Maybe it's a tension between where you're at and where you're going, but just holding them both and seeing what happens, because there is a third potential reality that can come through. Let's see what else. What irritates you? Whatever's irritating you is probably going to be the same thing that's going to come up again at the end of July, but you're going to be coming at it from a different perspective. So the more you work with it now, the more you're aware of it now, the more you can actually progress with whatever that irritation is when it comes back around in July. Friday, explosive. There can be triggers. This is a time to kind of step back, be on alert. see where there's areas where you would like independence, maybe give yourself the permission to be independent. And again, these are the kinds of things, once you have awareness, you can communicate these things to the people in your life. Like, hey, I just really need some space. It's not you. This is nothing personal about you. It's just that I'm really needing to exert my own independence in this moment for whatever reason. And also being aware that other people may be feeling the same way, and letting them have that space if they need it. Saturday, Moon square Saturn. This is going to be also the void moon that we're having. Again, this is just a chill, like just chill, be with your kids, be with your life, be with yourself. In the evening, maybe a little bit more social though, right? And then Sunday is sleepy. So again, lots of cues to slow down. Even on those fiery days or feisty days, it is kind of like just be spacious. It takes space. So that you don't blow too many things up, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if we're aware of it, this is the power of astrology, right? If we're unaware, we might have, and I want to add to irritation also just stimulation. There might be something for some who are really good with Uranian energy that it's a stimulation on Friday, not an irritation. But, the idea is that when we have Mars and Uranus active, and they're pretty active this week in their own way because of the lunar contacts to them going into July, it's this idea of, okay, I see this tension. Now I know how to work with it. But if you're unaware of it, it kind of comes at you. And you feel like, why did this accident happen? Or why did this happen to me? Or what's going on here? Why do I feel this way? And this helps us understand, oh, you know what? The astral weather right now has that stimulating or irritating volatility. So if we're aware of it, we can say, okay, I'm observing this beautiful situation instead of being wrapped up in it and thinking that it's so immediate.
Oh my, how many times have you watched a forecast or listened to the astrological weather in any way and been like, oh God, that explains it. Like, phew, like no wonder I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. That I'm actually in tune. I'm actually in the rhythm, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong. I don't have to fix this. I can just be with it, and I can make choices from that place, which is way more empowering than that. Like you said, that feeling like it's just happening to you and you're kind of getting battered around.
Yeah.
So,
Speaking of things happening to us, though, I want to flag. So my colleague, Julene Lewis, writes this column for the Mountain Astrologer called Skywatch. And when I was preparing for you today, the moon will be making contact to Jupiter, Mars, and Venus in the sky, all while there's a meteor shower culminating at the end of the week. Wow. So I want to send everyone out today to go do your sky watching. It is going to be awesome to see the moon on Tuesday will be conjoined Jupiter.
Okay.
And then also Wednesday conjoined Mars in the nighttime sky. And you'll see Jupiter and Mars together, but the moon's going to kind of skip along, And then by the time we hit Sunday at midnight, remember I said that moon will be conjoined Venus, and you can see that in the midnight sky. But while you're there, Sunday especially, this meteor shower called the Bootids, Bootids, will be culminating on Sunday. So I think that it's cool. Like as of the 22nd of June, we're going to start to see 1 meteor, 2 meteors. And at some point during the peak of its expression on Sunday, we could see 1 to 2 per hour. So there's a lot of chance to see some meteors through the sky.
It's reminding me of what you said about Venus and Gemini being glittery.
Yeah.
There's actually going to be glitter in the sky. And on Sunday, which is more of that sleepy day. So it's like, hey, just kick back, relax, watch the show in the sky, and just enjoy the universe and your connection to it and how beautiful it is. I love when Gemini Brett talks about the sky being the original motion picture. It's the original movie that people used to spend hours and decades in their entire life observing and watching. And it is entertaining, especially when we have meteor showers like that. So really nice. I'm grateful that you brought that in. And I want to thank all of you for being here. And if you are interested in joining Jenn as one of our astrologer teacher mentors in the inner circle coming up in September, and then all the other amazing astrologers we have on the roster for the rest of the year, including Adam Summer, Nora Rochelle, Christopher Renstrom, Linda Bird, and Shannon Gill. And then we're already lining up 2023, which is always so fun. We're already lining up our astrologers for next year. So If you want to check it out, now is the perfect time to do it. You go to astrologyhub.com/innercircle22, and we would love to welcome you into our online membership community. Thank you, Jen, for being here again for our weekly weather. Thanks to all of you for being a part of our community. And thank you, as always, for making astrology a part of your life. We'll catch you on the next episode. Hi there, astrology lover. I am so excited to let you know that we have officially opened the doors to our flagship membership program, The Inner Circle. The Inner Circle community is the heartbeat of Astrology Hub. Each month, the Inner Circle is guided by a new astrologer teacher who leads instructional new and full moon forecasts, teaches a mastery class on astrological technique, and is available for our members to ask them questions directly. Not to mention so many amazing bonuses like cosmic updates sent directly to your phone, live new moon intention setting ceremonies, and 20% discounts on all Astrology Hub courses, workshops, and reports. Don't miss out on joining a private community of thousands of like-minded astrology students. We only open 2 times per year. Just go to astrologyhub.com/innercircle22 to learn from the masters and transform your life in the process. That's astrologyhub.com/innercircle22. I can't wait to welcome you inside.